Awesome. Hey, thank you all for coming here and joining me today. We're going to have a fun little conversation today. We're going to start talking a little bit about Harness, but I think what everyone's more interested in is actually talking about National Stellar Bank and how they're actually pioneering innovation and what they've done over the past few years, kind of changing their journey to the cloud and how they've massively adopted. So we're going to get through a lot of that. The intention is to just be fun, kind of get through the things that are important, and then really get into demo and show you what this looks like in a highly regulated environment when you have to deliver software the same way that you would at Facebook or Google, but you have to do it in a massively regulated environment. And so how do you get that velocity? How do you make it easy to do the right thing? And how do you make it hard to do the wrong thing? So that's kind of what we're going to discuss today. We'll do a few slides, demo, and then we'll get to the conversation. So we'll go from there. Perfect. So look, at Harness specifically, if you don't know Harness, we're designed to help 30 million developers actually bring software to the market securely, reliably, efficiently, in a way that's meaningful, but also doesn't cause problems. You know, we all heard the saying, what was it? Move fast and break things, right? That doesn't really work in a bank. When you're critical infrastructure for your government, that's not really an option of breaking things. Right, taking outages and hurting your customers isn't something that we have to deal with. So how do we do this in a meaningful way? And what we've seen, it's insane the amount of time. We've got massive amounts of these developers, but they're not spending their time writing code. So who spends 40% of their time writing code? Anyone in the audience? 10%? Who has hands? Does anyone in the audience have hands? 3 of us have hands. This is going to be a good one, okay? We're going to be super interactive here. We're going to keep it going. The intent here, look, is we're sick and tired of waiting for slow builds. We're sick and tired of doing all these tasks that we're not good at, that take time, that take energy, that take effort, that aren't our core responsibilities. Look, I could hire my plumber to do my electrical, and I could hire my electrician to do my plumbing, but at the end of the day, like while they could, I don't actually do that. I make sure we have specialists doing the things that they're great at. And I think that's the goal, is empowering people to do that. Instead of having them work with security issues and slow builds and having issues with cloud costs, let's empower people to actually work together. Right? If we're bringing in tools that are just making friction, this is a challenge. If we're bringing in tools that, hey, our FinOps teams are just beating us with a stick, that's probably not the right way to do it. Let's do this in harmony, and let's actually work together. So the challenge that we see as a developer, it's not just writing code. Like, that would be great, that would be easy, but it's how do we get onboarding of developers? How do we get them up and ready, using the resources that we have, making sure they can actually do those first PRs, that they can actually start doing those builds. Once they're there, now we have to build and test this, right? It's not just writing code. It's a massive amount of work, interacting with the systems, working through it. And then it's how do we get these things released out to production? And this is a massive challenge, right? Getting it to production, right? This is something that, a lot of people say it's very difficult. It goes through a lot of processes, especially if you're in a regulated environment. The massive amount of regulations required to get to production are huge. After you deploy, it's not just deployment. This is going to build out, so you guys can take a picture. I'll even send you the slides. You guys are good. I'll tell you when it's built out. But then it's like verify. So now how do I know it's good? Right, now that I've got to production, I'm supposed to use it. And on top of that, if I did this without security, without governance, without policy, without regulation, now I'm in trouble, right? Because now I owe my auditors a response of how this actually happened, and I can't do it. And then, of course, we got to measure it. We got to actually understand what we're doing. And ultimately, if we're doing this in the cloud, we have to do it efficiently. So there you go. Now you got the full build out. You guys are good. And so the intent here is like, this is a lot of work. And if we challenge and we burden, if we shift all of that workload left on our engineers, we've done it wrong. Right? Just flat out, we've done it wrong. The idea of shift left started with security, and it was shifting left, but we started shifting the workload. We made it the burden of the developers. And what it should be is actually shifting the information left, giving people the right information at the right time so they can make the right decisions. Our engineers are some of the smartest people we have at our company. Why wouldn't we empower them with all of the right information instead of giving them all of that workload? And this is a massive challenge that companies have to solve, and they bolt it together and they string it together with a whole bunch of open source tools, and this becomes a challenge at scale. And then what if we want that new technology? We get, Kubernetes comes out. We're now using serverless. We're doing all of these different things. Now it becomes a new challenge every time. Why would we want to go through that? The same way you wouldn't build your own compiler, right? Why would you build this as well? And so this is what Harness was designed to do for you in those highly regulated, those highly secure, those highly auditable environments. This is how our customers get to production, and they do it because we're removing the worst part of people's jobs. Right? If you think about it, when I'm building, I don't want to run all 10,000 unit tests when I made a 50-line code change. All right, so I'm going to go and think about it like your best engineer, only run the tests that you want. When you go to deploy, I don't want to babysit a deployment and sit there and verify and like, is this good? Is this good? Let AI handle those things for you. As you go through this entire process, we want to remove the worst part of people's jobs throughout all of this. I don't want to take away the best part of someone's job because then they'll revolt. Instead, in fact, I want to spend all my time, energy, and effort removing the worst part of people's jobs because then they'll come clamoring. And this is really designed to make sure that as you progress and as you grow, right, as you mature through your systems, you then have the tools that you need. So for instance, you might not start with chaos engineering right out of the gate. You might do builds and deploys and security tests, but then as you get more and more resilient, or you want to add more and more resiliency, then you might add something like chaos testing. You might want to have verifications and attestations to prove that your artifact is the same artifact all the way through, and you might use different technology. So the point is as you grow, this platform's here for you. So why is this different? Why is this unique? Why do you care, I guess would be the point. So every part of this, we started this journey in 2017, and we came out with the first software delivery company bringing AI to the market. That was predictive modeling. It wasn't the generative AI we're talking about now, but we've been doing AI literally since inception. And again, we're using that AI to remove the worst part of the job. So we had a continuous verification, looking at those deployments, test intelligence, so forth. The other part of this is it's modular. You don't have to buy it all and use it all, right? So as you grow and you get through this process, you can actually use what you need as you need it. And it's designed that every one of our modules that we work in will be the top 1 or 2 in the market. That is our goal. That's literally what we do. If you don't believe me, we built a feature flagging tool a few years ago. And then top in the market was Launch Darkly, second was Split, and third was Harness. And we don't like being third, so we actually went and acquired Split and became the second in that space. But this is our goal, is to always have those top tier modules for you. Everything should be available to you in the way that you want to use it. So your developers might want to use this as code, your operations teams might want to use this in the UI, you might have other teams that want to use it via API. Making sure that we meet people where they're at is important, and then doing this in an audited, compliant, and secure manner is a must. Right? Your security and your governance and your policy should not be an add-on. It should be thought of at the very beginning of how you do these things. Right? We're great partners with Amazon, and one of the things that's amazing is how fast we get people to the cloud. And this is interesting because when you make it easy to do the right things and hard to do the wrong things, that sounds extremely basic. The cloud wouldn't exist if that was true. If it was easy to make VMs at your company, you wouldn't have a cloud. Right? We don't tend to make things easy for our employees. Right? And then if you make it hard for them to do the wrong things, that's again making sure we keep it secure. And this is how we're actually allowing people to get massive adoption to AWS, because what we do is we build those templates and we build those golden paths that get them to production quickly. Right? So you take folks like Citibank went from 5,000 Jenkins pipelines to, I think it was 26 Harness templates. So that's your way to the cloud. Right? And so now this allows you to easily onboard, get there quickly, and you put all the policy in place to make sure people aren't lighting up the wrong machines, they're not going in the wrong regions, they're not deploying software that has vulnerabilities and so forth. So again, easy to do the right things, hard to do the wrong things. Unified experience across the board. So why do you care? Why should you listen to Harness? We know a little bit about doing deployments. We know a little bit about doing feature flags. So trillions. I know it's a number that's hard to visualize. 9 trillion flags we evaluated for our customers. On top of that, right, 55 million deployments going to production is absolutely insane at scale. And so when you look at these numbers, these are massive, and this is how we help companies to do this. And this is what we're going to do, is we're going to talk specifically about how NAB is doing that. My goal here is I want to actually show a demo next and really show you how this happens and how this is consumed, how it's built, how it's delivered. And then the neat part is we're going to actually have Paul come up and talk about their specific journey using Harness. So again, don't trust me. You can trust all of our folks that use Harness. But let's go and we'll switch to demo. Let me see if I can get that up on the screen. All right, you guys can see. Cool, ooh, that looks good. All right. So here, we're going to start. I've got a pipeline here, by the way, that this one's previously executed. And it's going through build. It's going to go light up infrastructure. It's going to go deployed to multiple environments. It's got approvals. And we're going to walk you through what this looks like, not only in the execution of it, but we'll show you what it looks like, how to edit it, configure it. My intention is not to spend a massive amount of time, but I want you to have a clear understanding. So we'll go through that. First thing here is we look at builds. So builds are important to us. We want, what was it? 2 years ago, we came out and said that we made the bold claim and proved it. that we were 4 times faster than any CI vendor on the planet. And we do that because of that intelligence and thinking about things like your best engineers. And so one of the things you'll notice here is that we saved 6.5 minutes or so. We did this intelligently. So we're restoring all the cache for you so you don't have to figure out what you need to restore. We're storing all of the tests that you need, the tasks. But most importantly, I'm actually going and I'm doing something intelligent. So if I change the gas cap or the petrol cap on your car, you wouldn't actually have me go test all of your electrical systems. It wouldn't really make sense, right? We'd go test the things that are important. So what we're going to do for you very specifically, right, I'm going to go do and I'm going to think about it like your best engineer. So what would they do, right? They'd go figure out what portions of that code. Well, we're going to go decompile your code. I'm going to go figure out what actually changes you made, what tests are associated with them, and then I'm only going to run those. So instead of 10,000 tests, I'm going to run, I think, 1,200 tests. I got a whole bunch that we updated, so I got to check those, get on the results. If we had new ones, we'd test those. But instead of running all those tests, I just save you 6.5 minutes because, again, why would I test those? They have nothing to do with what you changed. And so the idea here is, again, remove that worst part. As we go through, you'll notice this is getting scanned across the board. And I think like a lot of people, we don't just use one scanner. We've got multiple different ones for SAST, for DAST, for IAST, for source code, so forth. And so this is going to go through, and you'll see, again, whether it's Black Duck, Sneak, Wiz, again, really any of the tooling that you want. It's difficult to then figure out, how do I aggregate, normalize, and deduplicate all that output? What am I supposed to work on? Like, what do I see? And the intention here is actually let Harness show that for you. So instead of showing you the issues that you already know about, so here's a whole bunch of issues that security knows about and they've got compensating controls for, instead of that, I want to know the ones that I just introduced this time. These are the ones that are important to me because I just now introduced these. These are the ones that I have to actually work on. And so this is helping me not only prioritize which ones, but then also figure out how exactly I'm going to go fix them. Right? I can look at the recommendations and I can look at the aggregation of all the different outputs. So now I can really start interacting with those tools. And now security is a partner. In fact, if I want, say maybe there is no fix for this, I can go quickly request an exemption. And you know what? For the next 7 days, because there is no fix, can I please have some extra time so this can make its way to production? So you can set policies and rules that prevent this from going. But if I do need to have that conversation, don't have the fight between security. Have them lay down the policies. Let them write all the rules. The way that I think about writing the rules is, we all play football, right? We just play it all differently. So in Europe and the rest of the world, we play very specific football. In America, we play a football that doesn't touch the feet much, which doesn't make much sense. And then Australian rules football is absolutely insane. It's the coolest thing I've ever seen, but not football. So here's the thing is, like, if we're not playing by the same rules, how can we all know where to go and how to get there? And in fact, we'll be slower because we're all playing by different rules. Once those rules are set and the policies in place, I now know how to get to production. I now know, what has to happen for tests and QA and resiliency checks, and now I can know what they are so that I can prepare for them every time. And this actually is what increases velocity. We see this massively, and we'll have Paul talk a little bit about it. So here, this went through the build, built the artifact, dropped it in our artifact registry, so forth. And then from there, I had to light up some infrastructure. And so we're going to do infrastructure planning. We're going to go through, we're going to make sure that that plan applies. We're going to scan it and make sure that in the infrastructure we're making sure that it has security. We're also going to make sure it meets our cost estimations and our resource capabilities. Once that goes and succeeds, this went into a dev environment. And here we're doing some things to make sure, as a regulated industry, that you have all the information you need. So the first thing, you've got a software bill of materials. So now you know every single thing that's in your artifact. Right? You can report it to either your internal or your external auditors. More important, you actually do SALSA verification. So that's going to tell you this is the exact same artifact that I built with every single thing in it. Nothing's been changed. It hasn't been compromised. So this can prevent you from having something like you would have at like a SolarWinds type of hack. Again, making sure you know this is exactly what it was all the way across the board. Apply that infrastructure. Work with the ticketing systems that you have. So again, meet the people where they're at. So whether it's ServiceNow, whether it's Jira, making sure they have all the information that they need to actually have the information for their tickets, know what's in there, the audit information, all available for them. Right? From there, I'm going to actually go make any database changes if necessary. So we're going to automate not only the rollout of the application, the infrastructure, but also the database for you. So make sure that change happens, and God forbid something went wrong, we could actually get it back to where it was before it started. Here we're doing a basic rollout since it's in a dev environment. Kick it up, let it go, let all the tickets understand where it's at, everything's good. From there, it went on to QA. In QA, similar things, going to go through all the security features, update the tickets, going to make sure that we roll out those databases. Here we're doing complex deployments for you. So blue-green, your engineers don't actually have to know how to write them, regardless of the infrastructure. They can just say, I want a blue-green, I want a canary, and again, Harness will handle that for them. Here I'm going to do a whole bunch of tests, and I'm going to run resiliency testing. So I'm going to actually go and see, right, what's that output of all of my chaos engineering to understand, am I going to be up if I drop a node, or if I drop a pod, or if I kill the cert or the network. So all those things that would happen in production that we want to make sure that we can, like for like, know we can handle that resiliency, that's there for you. Right, after QA, this went through approvals, not actually required, right? It's one of the things that, we'll use the ticketing systems, we use internal, but more importantly, the idea is that go through that change advisory board, go through the way that you go for changes, and actually turn that into policy so people don't have to approve anything, right? All of those things that are required, just literally make it policy. You can never make its way to production if you haven't met those requirements. And then in production, we'll do some interesting things, follow the same policies. We're going to check for risk, deploy out the database. We'll do that complex canary deployment for you. By the way, one of the things I didn't talk about, every single thing inside a harness is audited. Every single thing. So what we do, right, in any one of these, every single execution, you have every single piece of information of what we've done, how we've done it, where we did it, how we did it, right? You also have the input and output variables of every single thing you do. So when you want to talk about being able to prove what you've done and do it the right way, and then also put that appropriate policies in place, that's exactly what it's there for. After I did the deployment, we're going to do something interesting, so we're going to verify it for you. And this is where we start, again, thinking about things like your best engineers, right? Your best engineer goes, oh, hey, I've seen that exception, no big deal, like we do it every single time you deploy. We're going to do that exact same thing for you, but we're going to do it automatically. So the first thing is I'm going to look at all your time series metrics. I don't care where you get them, right? Whether you get them from APM tools, whether you get them from, it literally does not matter. We're going to grab all of those time series metrics and start comparing them for you and understand what they should look like. Here specifically, if I look at my response times, I've got a problem. I'm quite slow. And if I was slow and I had an issue with that, the first thing I would go do is I go look at the logs. And we're doing that for you. Again, let the AI think about this for you. And what we're doing is very simply, I'll give you an example. Like here's a null pointer exception. If I'm brand new to the environment, I'd be like, ooh, we need to fix this. But in actuality, our best engineer would be like, yeah, that null pointer exception exists. However, it exists there every single time I deploy, so why do I care? Right? But it takes that knowledge. So again, let AI handle that for you, in which case, hey, don't worry about it. You see it every single time you deploy. What about the ones that change in frequency? Right? And then more importantly, what about that brand new one? Now, those are the things that I actually want to gain access to. So again, give me all the information I need to solve the problem. Don't give me extra workload. Don't shift all that work to me. Give me the information that I need right now to solve the problem. So what did this do? So because this failed, right? So this went through, did its infrastructure up, did its database change, did its actual canary deployment. So now it failed. So what did it do? It killed the canary, right? Brought the database back to where it was, right? Rolled back the infrastructure and updated the tickets for you automatically. Had this continued forward, it would have flipped feature flags on a percentage-based rollout and gone like 10%, 50%, so forth, and seen if it worked. But again, this is all here to make sure that all of that's in place, and you can have a policy that prevents people from doing those wrong things. So I'll give you an example, and I'll show you how you edit this, and you can do it in the UI. By the way, if you hate our UI and you think it's the worst thing in the world, that's okay too. This is all config as code. You can branch it. You can do PRs against it. So operate the way that you want to. Right? But the most important part here is like, you know what? Every single time I try to deploy, this whiz scan gets in my way. And as a developer, I would traditionally just go into Jenkins and just remove the scan and press play, and nobody stops me because there's no policy preventing it. But in here, I'm just going to go kill it. And by the way, I'm an admin on this account, so this should get hairy. So let me save this. I'm going to go commit straight to main. Again, branching strategies, so forth. And what you'll find very quickly is I can't even save this. Why? There's a policy in place that says that scan has to exist, and there can be no new criticals that come from it. And so the intention here is to put policy in place to make it easy to do that right thing, but hard to do the wrong thing. So now I can't go and just delete the things that I think are going to make my life easier because there's a reason, right? Our security teams have put it in place. That why is important to the engineers, so understanding why that's there and why it's needed is important. So that's all here for you. The intent here, though, is it's extremely easy to add any steps, any stages. We integrate with all of our competitors. This is another thing. So, you know, if I want to go kick off like a GitHub action or a Bitrise plugin, right, all of this is here for you, right? If I want to go kick off a Jenkins job, God forbid, we can still even do that from here. But it'll fully audited in that pipeline with all of the with all the policy enforcement. So every step of the way, you can templatize and you can leverage all these pieces. I'll give you a clear example. I talked to you about canary deployments. This is the configuration for a canary. It gives you, do I want to do it based on percentage or instant count? That's it. There's no writing code to do a canary deployment. It understands the infrastructure underneath it, and you can choose it. We do give you advanced features to help you for every single step and stage. You get the ability to add failure strategies. And this is important to our highly regulated customers. If I fail, what do I want to do? And so at any point in time, based on any type of failure, so is it an auth failure, is it a timeout, right? What's actually happening? And I can choose exactly what I want to do as response. So do I want to call my best and brightest, have them take a look? Do I want to automatically roll back and get you back to where you were before you started without you writing a single line of code because we know what you deployed on which infrastructure, with which configurations, and which secrets? So the intent here is, again, make it really easy for people because you've got all of that sorted. They can know and trust that when they deploy, regardless of what time, it's going to either go out successfully because it met all of those requirements, or it will fail and it will get taken care of automatically. Right? All of these are also designed to be templates. So every single thing that you do, right, can be a template. So this canary, you can actually, once you configure it, can be saved as a template. This step group, right, this canary deployment itself can be an entire template. More importantly, this stage, so this production deployment stage, can be a template. And the intent here is dry. Don't repeat yourself, right? Like, who wants to sit here and do this over and over and have 5,000 copies of this and have drift? Don't do it, right? Take that mental load off your employees, and again, allow them to get to production quickly, right? That's most of kind of what I wanted to show, really. And I guess the only point here that I do want to make is when you start doing this, and you do this with any open source tool, or you do this with the CI, the build tool that you have, we start writing all these scripts and we start doing it, and it's working. Every single person that's ever used Harness has already been deploying to production. It's not like we're the first time they go deploy to production. But when it actually happens at scale, when it has to be audited, when it has to be compliant, when it has to be secure, when you have to prove it to someone, whether it's your own security team, external auditors, that's when it matters. And that's when you'll actually come and give us a phone call, because we make that extremely easy. From day one, you have that ability. And you can make sure that things are safe. If you want to get to production fast, it's about playing by those same rules. If everybody knows those same rules, we can get to production quickly. If everyone's playing by different rules, it's a constant challenge. And so we're here to help, again, remove that worst part of the job for people and make it really easy to do that right thing and really hard to do the wrong thing. So with that, I think I'm going to have Paul come up, and we're going to talk a little bit about NAB and their experience in Australia. Come on up, Paul.
Excellent.
Let's see if I can switch back to...
Am I on? Yep. Excellent.
PowerPoint. All right.
All right. Thank you.
Awesome. I think we'll...
Have a seat.
Yeah, we can sit here.
Yep.
Do you want to give a little introduction to yourself? And
Yeah. I'll give an introduction around NAB and myself. So my name is Paul Roney. I'm the executive for core platforms at NAB. What does that really mean? I look after cloud and a lot of our network infrastructure at National Australia Bank. For those who don't know NAB, it's a 160-plus-year-old financial institution in Australia with an ambition to become the most customer-centric company in Australia and New Zealand. So we've got over 38,000 colleagues, 10 million plus customers, Australia's largest business bank. A little bit about our technology estate for you. So we started our migration to cloud and a cloud-first strategy back in around 2017, 2018. We use AWS and Microsoft as cloud service providers. We've migrated about 84% of our workloads to public cloud.
Hold on. I think so. I don't know if you guys know about banks in the cloud, but 84% in the cloud is insane. It's absolutely amazing.
Yeah. So we're a long way down the path of our journey to cloud, partnering with AWS around that and Microsoft. So we do a lot of application development ourselves and have a lot of application development teams. So we've got application development teams across geographies in Australia, India, and Vietnam. So lots and lots of developers. We've also got lots of commercial off-the-shelf applications, as many organizations do. Probably one of the other key pillars of our strategy as we've moved to cloud is really to what Nick's been talking about, is really trying to simplify the development experience and have a really strong development platform for our developers to work on cloud as they're building applications on cloud. So a platform that really removes a lot of the toil is really, really important to us. And so we've obviously been in discussions with Harness and working with Harness the last couple of years.
Awesome. Let's get to some fun ones. I think look, the journey that you've taken, from where you were to now being on Harness. Like, what does that journey look like? Can you describe kind of your journey, to Harness?
Yeah. So our partnership and journey with Harness started a couple of years ago, probably around 2022. We were really looking at that point, based on the change we'd made and the acceleration to cloud, for a really resilient, secure, scalable platform that we could use for development and deployment of our apps and infrastructure to multiple clouds, as I've said. So we've been on a path now for multiple years around that journey, but we felt we could make a step change. And around that time was time to make the next step change. And we really liked what we saw from a product perspective around Harness, and it aligned really well with sort of where we were trying to do and the gaps we'd seen and the areas of toil that we'd seen and the problems we were trying to solve for our developers. At the end of the day, we want our developers, spending time, as you've spoken about, developing great features for customers, making sure our services are resilient, making sure they're secure. So we really want them spending more time on that. So we started first with the CI/CD module and looking what we could do around that, particularly around the templates. You've spoken a bit about templates. Real heavy emphasis on pipeline management and templates and reuse of templates and automation around those step stages and templates. Having very few templates, if we could, but very good templates. We also then moved to looking at infrastructure as code and the IAC module. So we also leverage the IAC module. We've got hardened infrastructure, but it helps us really a lot with the deployment of hardened infrastructure using IAC. So yeah.
I think it's interesting with a lot of what we do, right? We think about life, especially in development, as dry, like don't repeat yourself. And so those templates, like they seem basic, right? They seem like they should be in everything that's designed for software delivery. But in reality, it's usually a copy and a clone and drift and a huge challenge. And that's fine, 5, 10 developers when you're looking at thousands and thousands across multiple countries and time zones, and it becomes a pain. And I know that was one of the things that being able to standardize has really helped even you guys speed up, right, and move faster.
Yeah, absolutely. I like to call it like we're trying to hyper-standardize, right, how we do this. So really, really important to do that.
Awesome. I think for the folks in the crowd, like, what did the landscape look like before you had Harness? Because you were delivering software to your customers. You had, everything was happening before Harness. I know we've made it better, but what did it look like before?
Yeah, so we'd obviously taken steps around standardization previously. We had an opinionated template that we used for development around NAB-developed applications. So we still had distributed use of that, and the team still had to maintain currency of that template as we provided it to them. And also, they were also still running the infrastructure on that, and they had to patch. So there's still toil there involved in all of those activities. We had central governance and control gates, similar to what you've spoken about for deployment. But it was sort of still distributed in some ways, and less centralized, I guess, in terms of standard templates and too much toil still out there for the devs, in our opinion.
I'll give you an example. This was interesting. So Citibank, they have a 130-page document that dictates how they get to production. And you can sign a thing that says you've done all of those things, and you have to go through and check all of these things. Or you can go through a Harness pipeline that has all of those rules and policies in place that will not let you get to production unless you've met them.
Yeah.
And I think those are the differences is like, yeah, we've got the policies in place, we've got the governance, but it sits in a body, it sits in a change advisory board, it sits in places that are not necessarily within the pipeline. And that's where the challenge comes, because then it's time away from it. So I didn't mean to interrupt you. But
No, you're spot on. Yeah. Spot on, absolutely spot on there in terms of what that landscape looked like. So lots of pipelines, and yeah, just really a path to even more standardization we wanted.
Do you guys have kind of numbers on what that looked like beforehand versus after? Is there anything you want to or can talk about?
Look, still a significant number of pipelines, significant number of scripts for provisioning infrastructure. So lots of work and lots of toil that we didn't want. Different deployment strategies. So I guess that drift that you speak about. Levels of drift. So we had levels of standardization, but we wanted to take it, to a whole new level. Yeah.
Awesome. Let's see. What are some other good ones? In terms of modernization, right, of DevOps specifically at NAB, what is that actually looking like? And I guess, why was it important to start doing that innovation?
Yeah, so I always go back to the fact that, and you spoke about it earlier, that we want our devs we want to abstract away all the undifferentiated heavy lifting and have them just focused on developing those features for customers. So, and we want them to be able to do that confidently on in a process and a platform that's as automated as possible, using templates that have thought about deployment strategies, that have thought about rollback strategies, that make it easy to build, make it easy to see the telemetry around the work that they're doing, which you showed, and has strong auditability, as much automation as possible. So that's what we were chasing. So, but at the core of that, I'll go back to the first thing that we really were keen on. Is those templates, right? Those templates are just so good. Steps, stages, templates, and having as few of them as possible, and being really, really strong and clear about that is really, really important. So that was that. I guess that was really important, and what it looks like in terms of infrastructure. We essentially manage all of that infrastructure that supports that. So all the currency, the templates, all the currency of the infrastructure that supports that, all the patching that supports that. We run a container platform for our services. So we have services on EKS and AKS. So we centrally manage the container platform. So a lot of that toil taken away from those aspects, a lot of those things that the developers need, thought of, essentially. So that's really important, ensuring that hardening of the infrastructure as well. It also, I guess, means that they don't have to focus as much around cost and optimization. We're managing that as a fleet.
It is interesting. For a lot of people, they don't think about putting cost into the software delivery lifecycle, software development lifecycle. And it's interesting because literally that's what drives cost, is like more devs, more push to production, more infrastructure. And why aren't we giving our developers that information now? And it bewilders me because, again, like that's where the decision should be made. And so shifting that information left, making sure it's there, putting policies in place. Like if I'm going to go over my budget because that cool thing that I think I want to deploy, I should probably know about it now, not a month later when my CFO yells at me, right? Any applications, any tooling that you bring in, any platforms that you bring into a company, if they're just being used as a big stick to go hit other people, it doesn't really work out very well. If security's constantly the thing that's a battle, and it's always the team of no, or FinOps is the one yelling at you for spending. It's like, why aren't we working together in harmony and making sure that everybody's empowered under the same platform? And I think that was one of the things that we want to design key for, and I think it's one of the things that you guys have taken advantage of heavily to really good output.
Yeah, no, absolutely. We have. I think a couple of the other things you touched on security. Obviously, security and controls, as you spoke about, in a very regulated environment, and automating what you can around the controls really, really important. So we've been able to leverage Harness to help us with that. We've got more to do, but it has helped us get more confidence, even though we had confidence in what we were doing from a security engineering perspective. It's all there in one place. Hardened templates, gives us great confidence and with the auditability of your products. So helped a lot from that perspective. I think the other piece, we did touch on deployment strategies, but moving to cloud brought us a really good level of resilience as we designed our architectures differently for cloud, brought us currency in terms of the infrastructure that we were running. Now, obviously, we have been applying, canary, blue-green deployment strategies, auto rollback, having all those sort of, I keep calling hardened features provided.
It comes down to trust, right? It's if you don't trust the tooling underneath it, if you don't trust the code, if you don't trust the applications, it's very difficult.
Yeah.
But once you can actually build it, and we see this, like a lot of customers, they won't even start with automated response to it, right? Yep. They won't, we want to call our best and brightest every single time it breaks, have them make the determination. Then once they realize, hey, this thing's smart enough, and by the way, it can get us back, then people start leaning on that automation. Yeah. I think that you've seen that over the last
Yeah, we've seen that, and it's really, really effective in the way we're managing our container platform for all the services and applications that are running on that. So, really, really good.
Awesome. Let's see. I don't think there's anything else under that. I think we covered most of that. Where does AWS fit into the DevOps modernization? I know you talked about both clouds, but where does AWS fit?
So AWS is our largest cloud provider. As I said, we've got 84% of our apps running on cloud. Many of the apps that we build, so NAB developed apps, are actually developed on AWS services. So we work closely with them a lot of the time, or all the time really, and use them as a strong feedback loop around what we're doing as well. We've got partnership with yourselves to get some of that feedback about what other customers are doing. But we've also got a strong relationship with AWS from that perspective. So we're always talking to them about how they work, the culture, getting some good outside in from them. And we actually see a pretty good, strong relationship between yourselves and AWS, which is good, which you touched on. So it's actually very clear to us that you guys have a really good relationship.
We definitely try. Most of our customers run on AWS. It's where we develop most of our features first because of that. And look, we're not an if you build it, they will come company. We don't randomly just go build things. We've got lots of customers that have challenges. We started life as continuous delivery as a service. So just the CD portion, artifact to customer. And it wasn't necessarily us that decided to go and build for the rest of the SDLC. It was our customers. They wanted that same audit. They wanted the same compliance. They wanted the same templates. They wanted to make it easy to do that right thing and hard to do the wrong thing across all of it. And that's what drove it. And so we do work with our partners, but primarily they're deploying to Amazon, whether it's their on-premise or Amazon. That's kind of where it's at. So yeah, we do try to be extremely fast with that and innovative. So absolutely. What does your current landscape look like for your developers? They've got a ton of tooling, a lot of different things. What does that actually look like?
I guess it's significantly improved for them with the work that we've done in the last couple of years. So deployment pain reductions, as I said, with those deployment strategies, reduction in build failure rates, build times decreased, deployment frequency improvements, time spent on deployment-related tasks that you spoke about, automation of some of those controls. So some of those aspects, we've seen a lot of improvement. There's more to do. There's always more to do. But we've seen improvement. As I mentioned earlier, the telemetry is really good, I think. There's a lot of prescription there and a lot of telemetry available to the teams. There's a lot of telemetry available to the developers, and there's a lot of telemetry also available to the central team, right? Where the central team can also go, well, where should we invest more time? They've got a feedback loop, but there's also data there, right, which helps them determine that. So really important. And getting real confidence, even more confidence in our safe deployment strategies, right, and rollback strategies that you spoke about. So we're getting more and more of our application, footprint onto the platform.
Perfect. It's always good to hear when people are bringing down the things that are bad and bring up the things that are good. Yeah. But it's kind of interesting because that's what we strive for, right? We want to help people go faster. We want to help them get to the cloud faster. We want to help them get to production faster. But we want to do it with less, quality issues. We want to do it with less security issues, with less finance issues. And I think, if everything's done after it gets into production, which oftentimes it is, that becomes a problem because it's a lot harder to change there. And so to your point, bringing those up early, making sure they integrate, making sure they operate together is key to making this all operate. If you didn't have teams working together, this wouldn't work. And it's actually a testament to the NAB team and what they've done because they've kind of gone in full bore and said, hey, this is actually making things better. And they've allowed their teams to work together. Yeah. So I think it's been good. Yeah, that's been good. It was interesting, we talked a little bit about the security things, and I'm going to go a little bit off script here, but what was interesting, when we talk about Harness with folks, we don't look at it as a customer-vendor relationship traditionally. We actually focus on having it be a partnership. And I think it's interesting because the folks at NAB actually called us up and said, hey, we're looking at some new security technology, it's looking super cool, but you don't have an integration for it. And we called up our buddies over at Wiz and said, hey, we need to make an integration. They said, oh, great. A lot of the other CI/CD toolings are already out there doing it. They've been working on it for the last 6 months or so. You're a little late to the game. I said, okay, cool. And within 2 weeks, I think it was a sprint or maybe 2, we came out with a full integration with Wiz. We were the first company to actually do it. We're the last to enter and the first to do it. But we do that because of our partnership. And we understand what's valuable to you, and we understand what's valuable to your customers as well. So.
Yeah, I guess if I touch on our relationship and partnership with Harness and what I've seen, when we first started, the contract a couple of years ago around CI/CD, I probably had a list of features that I came to Harness with, and I said, sure.
But I need this.
Very happy to sign, but we want to see this, and this, and to your juice, you delivered. So we see a very strong, from our perspective. I've said this to you offline. I think you've got a very strong engineering team and a very strong product team. Engineers who, have lived experience in the product they're building, so that gives confidence. And to your credit also, you've invited us to discuss forward-thinking type product features and things we're looking for, and consider them seriously. So I do see Harness, how you treat your customers in a very more in the mode of how AWS also thinks about their customers. So I see great synergies in the way you do that. Yeah.
Well, I appreciate that, and I think it's one of the things that we strive, but we cheat a little bit too, because look, we build software for developers. We build software for we're building it for ourselves, and so we use all of our own software, and we eat our own dog food, and we drink our own champagne. I think marketing, somebody wants me to say we drink our own champagne. I think that's the preferred one, but we eat our own dog food. All right, like that's what we do. But we have a benefit. If I was building software for a nuclear silo, like I don't touch nuclear silos. I have no idea. I'm going to have to do a lot of work with the customer. We are the customer. So I will say we get to cheat a little bit in the sense that we get to use our own software. But no, I thank you for the kind words. It's been phenomenal working with you as well. So no complaints over there. What value have you guys actually seen, right? Look, we can do this quantitatively, we can do this qualitatively, but like, what does that look like for you partnering with Harness?
Yeah, I think I've touched on a fair few aspects of it, in terms of, the build times, build quality, deployment aspects, the shift left around security, early detection of vulnerabilities in the dev lifecycle is really good. Having real confidence in compliance to software standards that we have, giving us more confidence in what we can do around portability, with multiple cloud providers. We've seen really strong evidence of reduced toil. We've got a lot more to do, but we've seen really strong evidence of that. We're really strong on simplification as well. And, this is allowing us to decommission, a lot of pipelines and infrastructure as well as we simplify and standardize on the platform. So been really effective from that perspective, yeah.
It's funny, the decommissioning thing, I'll tell a little side story. We have a customer that got rid of all of their Jenkins, which is awesome. And if you go to our booth, you'll see some kind of anti-Jenkins things, which is a little funny. But they actually had a piñata made. It was the massive butler from Jenkins, and the whole company got to take turns smashing that thing when they got finished with it. It's a nice place to be. I see a few people laughing, maybe not everybody, but it is nice when you can remove a lot of those scripts and a lot of that headache. So decommissioning older tools that have grown out of necessity, but have just amassed, like that's a huge one. So maybe at some point we can smash a Jenkins piñata together. But, awesome. I think what's next in terms of software delivery at NAB, or just in general.
Yeah, look, just getting even simpler, getting more standardized. We haven't really touched our commercial off-the-shelf products deeply yet, so we want them all running on the same platform with a set of standardized templates for those as well.
It's interesting, you look at people and they talk about like when those failures happen, and actually half of the time, or for a lot of folks, it's not just necessarily the code you write, but it's actually the deployment of the COTS apps that cause the same type of failures as even your own code. So a lot of people are automating that through the same type of tooling, i.e. Harness, as they would if it was their own code.
Yeah, so absolutely we can do the same with our commercial off-the-shelf applications, and we're looking at those. The future, we want to abstract even more away from the devs so they can focus even more around the features that they're building for customers. So we really love to get to a place one day, I guess, where they've just got their dev space and there's that much abstraction from them. They can sit there and focus on the applications and services they're building for customers. And most of that toil is, gone.
Yeah.
They've got that environment, they're building, then they've got the next staged environment, they're building, then they can deploy. So really getting to that stage is where we'd love to get to.
I think it's interesting now, especially with AI doing so much and removing a lot of the toil in a lot of different areas. I think that's, a lot of people say that AI is going to kind of mirror how we, our human behavior. I actually have a different story on this one. I think it's interesting. I think we're actually going to mirror kind of that agent-based AI system where they're focused on exactly what they're phenomenal at, right? Like you build that AI to do that one specific task and they're great. And if you look at, as we in our work, traditionally we've had just way too much workload. The full stack developer has gone insane on what is actually required. And in reality, like, I want to do what I love. And you put those headphones on and you start grooving.
Yep.
Don't get me out of that flow. And so the better we can do that for people, I think it works for everybody.
Yeah.
Any other ideas, future concepts, thoughts?
No, we've got a lot on our plate. With, using your platform, it's working well for us. We're still finishing our journey on migration to cloud with our cloud providers. There's always, things we can do and look at. I was having a chat about Amazon Q a couple of days ago.
Yep.
So yeah, we're always obsessed with trying to improve that experience for the devs and get them focused where we want them to focus, which is really making getting those features out for our customers and having time to do that and more time to do that. So if we want, with our ambition to be, I guess, the most customer-centric company in Australia and New Zealand, we really, this is a part of that, like free those devs up to do that work.
Get them closer to the business, get them closer to the customers.
Yep.
I think it's actually key. I think as companies go forward into 2025, 2026, I think that's going to be the differentiator because you've got a lot of AI doing a lot of different tasks. It's how well we can know our customers and how well we can be in their shoes and have empathy that it'll actually change it. Yeah. Well, Paul, I really appreciate you coming up here and doing this and spending your time. I know I've got 10 extra minutes. I don't need to necessarily eat it. I didn't prep for this, but are there any questions in the crowd? I don't even know if I'm allowed to do it, but I'm going to ask anyways. So they're not saying no yet. So are there any questions in the crowd that you guys want to get asked? No? Everybody good? Awesome. Thank you all for joining. If you want to come talk to us, do we know our booth number? I don't know. Do we? 628. Come see us. It's huge. I'd love to talk to you guys, show you a demo. Thank you much. Appreciate it.
See you.